what are the provinces that are the most friendly to international medical graduates in Canada, which means they are offering the highest number of positions, they have the least number of requirements, and have consistently shown a good and excellent track records for accepting international medical graduates into their program. So hello everyone, I'm an internal medicine resident and I match at the University of Calgary, and it is one of the most famous programs in the country. I'll show you the raw data straight right on my screen just for transparency's sake, and I'm also going to show you like a financial page from your Financial MD. I'm not an affiliate with them, I'm just showing you the raw data that they have just to encourage you, to let you know that pursuing a medical career, you're not wasting your time. Give it all that you have in order to be able to benefit from this data that I'm going to show you. And also we will be organizing like NAC classes, which will be high yield in the August of this year, and watch out for our website. The link will be in the description box, or you can scan this QR code on your screen to join our different communication platforms where we'll be able to share most of the information. So today we're going to be looking at data on international medical graduates for the past 5 years, so spanning from 2021 to 2025, and we'll be seeing essentially which provinces are the best and which provinces have hired IMGs consistently, and this will help you a lot. This is not just for IMGs as well, but we'll be looking at overall what provinces have been having the greatest number of candidates, and also try to look at which of the programs are the top tier in which people are matching the most in, and we'll just trend the data. So before we continue, if this information is bringing some value to you, please subscribe to the channel. That's really how you can help us, and in return I promise we will bring more data. We will look critically and bring you more information that's tailored to your specific needs. All right, let's get right to the screen. So right here you can see that this is a 2025 match information for the comms firm itself. So we're exactly be looking at what happened in 2025. There is this data that's readily available. You can check it out yourself, but I'm just gonna go right into it to start showing you the overall information that we had right here from the 2025 match. So in total, you want to see that here it's like 2,253 candidates actually submitted the information for IMGs, and for CMGs was about 1,000 more than that. And for those who finally submit an application, there will be 1,772 and 3,184 for Canadian medical graduates. So that's substantial. So in a year we had about 5,000 applicants, both Canadian medical graduates and CMG. So I'm not including US graduates here. And so if I want to include US graduates, there were just 22 of them, as you can see right here on your screen. And so that raw number is about 5,000 and something. So and international medical graduates includes Canadian medical graduates that have studied abroad. So if you were born in Canada, did your undergraduate in Canada, then left and went to Australia or to UK or to New Zealand and did your medical school there, and you come back to Canada, technically you're considered as an international medical graduate, even though you did undergraduate here. But there's usually some advantages to candidates of this nature, which we're going to chat in the later sections of the video. But I want to bring you back to my screen just right here to show you that these are the overall breakdown in terms of national highlights and those who match. So if you look at the quotas right here, you will see that these are the quotas that were filled and these are the ones that were unfilled, and the unfilled ones are these ones right here. And if you're looking at it, you would see that for first iteration about 731 IMGs ended up unmatched, and same here for like second iteration. So they try to categorize it into like current year medical graduates, and then those who graduated like 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 2050 year in the past. So again, you see that the fact that being current in your graduation is really important, and it can help you a lot in terms of you matching. Coming back here, we have for second iteration, again you have current year graduates who are right here and previous year graduates, and you can see here it's 11 versus 135. So that is a raw data. And when we're just looking at the data going back from like 2021 to 2025, you see that there is an increment. There is that constant increment, and about from 2021 to 2025 there's been almost about a 50% increase in the match rate for international medical graduates, which is pretty exciting, pretty encouraging. As you can see right here, from 2021 to 2022 it's increasing fairly, as you can see right there, which is pretty much encouraging. So this is just generally encouraging you as international medical graduates to not get discouraged, but to keep working on your applications, to keep looking for ways to get better. We will proceed further and get more information. So overall, as you can see on this graph right here on your screen, there's been a trend as well. There was a slight decrease in the total number of international medical graduates who were applying to the program, I guess, in 2020. But we all know 2020 was that year where COVID hit and there was a lot of stuff ongoing, and so this could account for that. But the general trend here is that you are seeing that the number of applicants is lingering around 1,500 for international medical graduates using this, and around 35 and around 3,000 or 3,000 for the Canadian medical graduates in general. So again, when we come here and we look at the positions offered for CMGs by discipline, you can easily see it here. This is for the first iteration, and then the ones in greens are for internal medicine. So you can literally see that over the years, positions for internal medicine, family medicine, and all these other specialties has been gradually increasing as well overall for Canadian medical graduates. And again, this quota is just showing us the same information for Canadian medical graduates. So going to number 2 point, in terms of provinces match quota for 2025, we would generally see that Ontario was a leading province. So Ontario had many more spots for IMGs, and in general, because again, Ontario has about 6 medical schools, and there was just a new one that was recently added to that as well. So the province is broad, has many medical schools, and as a result, consequently gets a huge number of applications and gets the greater share of match applicants. So overall, top specialties for IMGs were like, family medicine, psychiatry, to a certain extent internal medicine, and then, you had other subspecialties that came in. And the surgical subspecialties are usually the least with fewer positions, and then even minute and very competitive ones like ophthalmology and dermatology are usually, the cake of the cake. It's pretty rare to have some of those positions. But before I actually take you into this quarter, I'm just going to bring you right here to show you data from MD Finance, just so that you're encouraged and you know that your medical journey, there's a lot to gain after you graduate from residency. So struggle, do your very best to match, because it is actually worth it actually matching and working as a physician from even what you make just from the standpoint of view. That's what I want to show with you today. If you see this data right now, so this is from MD Finance, which is a major brokerage group affiliated with one of the big 5 banks, which is the Scotia banks. So in general, the average amount of money that a physician will make in Canada is about 400 grand, which is really huge. And then you have to pay, your staff, people work for you. If you're a clinic-based person, then you have to pay other taxes and all these other things. But at least at the end of the day, you take home a substantial if you know how to claim your taxes and go through all these different financial pathways. But there's a lot that you can gain. And then if we go down to look at it by subspecialty, you can see the subspecialties right here by province. Alberta leading with an average of 458 grand, and then Saskatchewan and Manitoba, Quebec, New Brunswick, British Columbia, Prince Edward, Nova Scotia, Ontario, and as you can see right here, and then you can actually flip this and go by subspecialty match, and there is just a lot that you would see here. For example, cardiology, this is what an average they make. This is prior to taxes and paying of staff and claiming all the benefits and every other thing that it can have to do. Dermatology, family medicine, all better. So consistently you kind of see like Alberta tops for most of the things in terms of how much they pay. So it's totally worth it for those candidates that are looking at Alberta and applying and matching there. I think that will be a very good place for you to kind of like look at practicing as a physician. It's kind of like a really cool province as well with low taxes. I'm not particularly vouching for it, but I'm just saying that there are certain advantages to being here again. But then there's other things like cost of living that might increasingly go as the population is increasing. So coming back here, we're talking about Ontario, like family medicine. Ontario was a primary province that took in the most IMGs. So if you want to match as an IMG, you're looking at Ontario as your primary province, and family medicine as its first specialty. But the thing is that Ontario uses a funny system of filtering, which no one actually knows a complete criteria for that, but they kind of like use a combination of many things. It could be your NACO skill scores, your QE1 scores, or both, your year of graduation, your clinical experience, recency. It could be any of these things that we never really clearly know, and the information is not publicly available in terms of what criteria they use, but it kind of sounds like this criteria varies year by year, and the entire family medicine program is coordinated, and then they do the selection together. And so once you're invited for an interview for family medicine in Ontario, you don't know what university is actually going to rank you or where you're going to match. It's province as a whole that sends out invites for family family medicine, and then you interview, because the interview too is general for that family medicine residency. And then after that, you just rank based on whatever you want to go to. And then the province that's actually really interested in you is going to rank you higher, and then you might end up matching there. So that's how it works with family medicine Ontario. But otherwise, other provinces actually go province-wise. You apply to a specific university, and they follow their own interview system based on what they actually want, and then you can rank them as a separate. And provinces that took in the most IMGs were Ontario. After that, we had like Manitoba, Saskatchewan. Provinces that are a little bit competitive, as I'll give you an overall summary as we run towards the end. Provinces that are a little bit competitive might be Alberta, because they have like extra criteria. So you have to be a resident of Alberta in the past 6 months prior to applying for the match year, which means if you want to apply for the match of 2026, then by December you have to be a resident of Alberta, and you have to go through the IMG program, which is a whole nother thing, criteria that you have to meet. And then you do the MMI with them, and then you succeed at MMI, and then before you're able to apply to Alberta. So the stakes are a little bit higher. There's much more requirements for Alberta, and there's just a lot more documentations to do, and then you have to be a resident of Alberta. Same thing applies with British Columbia. There is a BC cap that you're supposed to do. Again, it opens sometime around July of every year, or like June to July of every year. You want to make sure that you check on the BC website just to make sure that you are not missing the deadlines date to do a BC cap. You need to submit your files to them, pay a little amount of money, sometimes somewhere between $150 to $300. Same thing for Alberta. You have to submit documents, English language test, pay some money, about $200 to $400, and then you're eligible to apply. You want to check on those websites. At the time of recording this video, I think for Alberta IMG program, the timeline has elapsed. It's usually sometime in May, from the early May to the end of May or early June. It's usually that time window where you have to do this submission to meet the pre-screening eligibility requirements. So overall, the key insights that I want to bring to you today are that Ontario located many more spots compared to any other province in Canada. So if you're looking for where there is high number of spots, Ontario is really good because they don't also have a language eligibility requirements. Well, they do, but it is like you can either show the cover page of your Ward Director of Medical Education just to show your medical education was done in English, and you're good to go. You don't have to write IELTS, CELP, OET, which are pretty expensive exams, and you can fill them, and it can be very stressful. Other provinces do require these things except Ontario. Manitoba and Saskatchewan were relatively simpler and softer in terms of their eligibility requirements. British Columbia and Alberta were a little bit much more demanding in the fact that you had to do extra stuff like the BC cap and the IMG program for Alberta. And then Alberta is even a little more tougher because you have to be a resident of Alberta, and then it's a little more costly because for you to do this pre-eligibility screening and assessment, you have to pay some money. In terms of systemic challenges for IMGs, I want to point out certain things here. According to the 2025 CARMS report, it shows that European trained IMGs were more favored in the CARMS match outcome compared to applicants from Africa and I guess Southeast Asia. So overall, we had a 65.5% match for candidates of European origin, which means schooled somewhere in Europe, versus 40-ish% from people who schooled in an institution from the African continent. Is this a bias, or is this just their readiness and familiarity to the system, meeting most of the eligibility requirements as opposed to African candidates? There's a lot that could be debated on this, but I like to say that look at the bright part of it. The trends have been increasing, and we've had many more Africans hired. One of the provinces that was a little bit disfavoring some of the applicants is Quebec, which is usually having its own thing as well that you have to go through in order to be eligible. So they do have like a pre-screening program for Quebec that you actually also have to go through and submit recency of practice and show that you're current and that you're in good standing with your accreditation body from home country. But even after that, last year about 70 candidates for family medicine went unmatched even after the second iteration. So these are spots that were left unmatched, and apparently in 2025 there were even about 80 spots that still went unmatched for family medicine in this province. So usually Quebec is notorious for not always filling all the spots, even though there are tons of candidates who go unmatched. But I guess it's all about meeting eligibility criteria. It's good to have an excellent physician instead of just, fitting in with the numbers. But again, in terms of what province to pick, I would say Ontario has the most spots and has the least requirements, but it has a return of service. In terms of those who are more open and a little bit flexible, Manitoba was pretty much open, even though people do say that Manitoba favors residents of Manitoba, but there was no proof of that because I got invited to interview for programs in Manitoba, even though I've never lived in Manitoba before. And Alberta is about the only province, I don't want to say the only province, but it is a province that has no return of service for none of the programs, whereas most of the provinces offer a 5-year return of service in Ontario for every program across the board, whereas other provinces offer a return of service based on the duration of your residency training. So if you train and you do a family medicine program for 2 years, then you must work in BC for 2 years after graduating to fulfill the return of service requirement. If you're training internal medicine and you end up doing a subspecialty match and you school there, or you get trained in residency for 5 years, then you must work in BC for 5 years, or you must work in Saskatchewan for 5 years to fulfill your return of service requirements. Alberta doesn't have that, so you could be training Alberta, complete today, and then tomorrow you're off to the US to do a fellowship or whatever program you have, no strings attached. That's why I rank the Calgary program top on my list. So overall, what I'm trying to tell you is that number one, the trend is increasing for international medical graduates. As you've seen on the data, according to 2025, 851 IMGs actually matched, which is up from the 400s, which is almost 50%. That's double from 5 years ago. That's positive. Keep working, guys. You will definitely make it. Number two, Ontario is a province that offer the most spot and took in the most number of IMGs. Even for those rare spots where usually it's very competitive and they'll only give to CMGs, Ontario would always try to have at least 1 or 2 spots for IMGs for those. So kudos to Ontario. Ontario wins in this case. Saskatchewan and Manitoba are a little more open, not very strict with certain requirements. Alberta and BC are a little more tighter because you have to do further assessments and it costs a little more and you have to be vigilant with timelines. And Quebec also timeline vigilant, but notorious for not completing or filling its spots that it offers on the CARMS application portal when it opens. Okay, so there you go. If you've liked this information and you're enjoying it, please hit like and subscribe and continue to support us in this endeavor, and we will do our best to bring you much more information. Till then, bye-bye.